Layton continues to dominate this season, but tonight's track may be just the kind of challenge that our drivers need to unseat the assumed champion. Laguna Seca is a circuit that is familiar to about everyone in the world of racing, but getting it right is a different feat entirely. Welcome everyone to round 20 of the Porsche Owners Club Series, and you'll see it all here live on the Global SimRacing Channel. My name is DJ Clark, and with me here in the booth is Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Joe Peak, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Now, despite the famousness of this circuit, for those unfamiliar with the California layout, let's head over to our GSRC track guide for some more information.
Welcome to Laguna Seca. Located just east of Monterey, California, it's hard to deny that this is one of the more scenic American road courses. It travels up and down a hillside which not only offers spectacular views, but one of racing's most iconic corners. Clocking in at 2¼ miles in length, 11 turns split up the current configuration. I say current because up until 1988, the track's layout was shockingly simple with a mere 9 dangerously fast corners. But despite becoming a much more technical track, this difficult nature was retained in its modern form. Turn 6 in particular places an emphasis on precision and daring with its tricky dip at the apex and narrow racing line. But the most well-known spot on the track is of course the corkscrew. Blind and kinked on entry, it then whips the driver through a chicane which drops you nearly 60 feet. It's earned a reputation worldwide for forcing even the most daring competitors to second-guess themselves. But there's honestly a refreshingly wide variety in types of corners, making it a perfect track for driver coaching and training. Elevation changes, differing cambers, and every sort of apex imaginable leaves seasoned veterans and newcomers alike spending hours trying to perfect a lap. With the track becoming popular for hosting IMSA, IndyCar, and MotoGP in its recent history, it also brings out lots of vintage racers due to the Monterey historics each year. Likely to remain a fixture on the American racing scene, this legendary circuit is almost always high on drivers' best of lists. Its history and its uniqueness are sure to delight all for years to come.
Well, Joey, that's a little bit of an overview of this Laguna Seca circuit, but how do you think these Porsche GT3s are going to take to it?
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see these Porsches all out there at Laguna Seca tonight. I know that it's been really hot and slippery as we're looking. This is an 11-turn layout here at Laguna Seca. Really, we're going to be looking at a few main passing zones throughout this, down into the Andretti hairpin, also known as Turn 2. Then another popular one down after the Rahal straight into the corkscrew. That leads down into this steep all the way through the rainy curve downhill leading into the final corner, which is another very, very popular spot to overtake here tonight. Can't wait to see the action. It looks like we got 11 cars out there tonight. As we know, Laguna Seca, 2.2 miles. And yeah, I know that these cars, I think they're out there in qualifying right now, yeah?
Yes, indeed, they are out in qualifying, and it's Jeffrey Shulam leading the way. But before we get to that, we want to thank our sponsors for tonight's broadcast. First and foremost, Porsche. There is no substitute. For more, find out at Porsche.com. Also, Sunset Mortgage. Don't put your money in the bank, be the bank. Check them out at sunsetcash.net. Also, Octavio Tequila. Celebrate now for a great tasting tequila. Go to OctavioTequila.com and purchase today. And finally, Rogers Financial. You retire once. We retire people every day. For all of your financial planning needs, contact Rogers Financial today at rogersfinancial.info. Also want to run you through our championship here for the season as we are closing in on the end of everything here. And, well, as we've sort of previewed here, it is Tom Layton leading by a country mile there over Corey Lotvilla to the tune of about 91 points. Pretty close battle there going back, though, between Lotvilla and Brown. Michael W. Johnson working his way up there after a little bit of a midseason slump. He'll be hoping to do a little bit better as the last couple of rounds come into play. Then from there, Michael Bolton in P5. Michael Ost holding on to P6. Sam Mayorga hoping to close in on the back of him, as well as B.J. Fulton and Jacob Abrams. That's a very tight battle there from about 6th on back. And then Doug Boccignoni rounds out the top 10. And Doug's had a very, very good, solid, consistent season here. But, Joey, we also have some race details for us today. And what do we have in store?
Yeah, looks like we're here at round 20 of 25 of the Porsche Owners Club. We're going to be racing the Porsche 911 GT3Rs tonight. Everybody's going to be in those same cars. They are a 6-speed sequential box. As we all know, these Porsches have the flat six. And then tonight's race is a 90-minute race. These cars will be doing pit stops. They have a full tank of gas to start off. And I don't think they're going to be putting all of the fuel in once they come in for the stop. And everybody is on an open setup tonight. So I'm curious to see if maybe one car will start to pull away from the others, given that this track temperature is quite a bit different than the practice these guys have been doing this week.
Yeah, it certainly is. That's something that we had a little bit of a chat with some of the drivers about beforehand. And track temperatures right now upwards of about 107 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is 20 to 30 degrees hotter than anything else that these drivers had practiced with. So we certainly think that could throw a little bit of a wrench into the works here for everybody. But we watch right now your provisional pole sitter, Jeffrey Shulam, up at the top of the charts right now by only about 32 thousandths of a second over Mark Rondeau. Michael Johnson pretty close there behind as well, only about a tenth of a second back. And then Jacob Abrams very close, 35 thousandths back as well. So it's going to be a very, very close run, it looks like, here for that top four.
I agree. It's not only the top four, DJ. I think I'm looking at the entire field is separated by only 1 second. I think it's 1.001 is what the entire field is separated with right now. And then looks like 120s all the way through 7th place. Is that what I'm seeing? So 4/10 separates the top 7 cars right now.
And that's going to lead us into some fantastic racing out on the track. And as you mentioned, they're a 90-minute race out on track. We will have pit stops here. That's not always the case in this Porsche Owners Club. BJ Fulton there getting things wrong, though, coming up and over the crest of the hill. And Joey, that is so easy to do through turns 5 and turn 6 there. You just try to carry a little bit too much speed, and that the dirt on the edge of the outside will just come back to bite you.
That is a very tricky section of Laguna Seca. As we watch these cars do laps tonight, you'll notice the track really falls out from underneath there. And if you don't hit your turn in and your apex just right through that corner, it can really send you out driver's right, which is what we saw. And unfortunately, he got too far out there, lost grip, and it hooked on him back driver's left into the wall.
Yeah, and that is something that they are going to have to keep their eyes open for here. The good news for the drivers, though, is if they do run into a little bit of problems, there are 2 faster pairs that they are able to use. And so I do think that we're going to see plenty of drivers taking care of that as they go through the race. Definitely some drivers who get things wrong, but it looks like they're Shulam able to get that. Oh, I jinxed him. That was on me, Jeffrey. That was 100% commentator's curse. They're getting it wrong through turn 6 again. Just a little bit of understeer picked up, and that spat him right to the outside.
It was almost identical deja vu to the move that we saw just a little bit ago, and it goes to show you have to be spot perfect tonight. It looks like a very low grip racetrack, and if you make one little mistake out there, it can send you into the wall.
Yeah, very, very much so. Here is Doug Boccignoni. We highlighted him a little bit earlier on. One of the drivers that has been having a very, very consistent season, and it's been a little bit of a good run of form for Doug. He's looked good, getting consistent top 10s, top 5s over the course of the season, and that's really allowed him to be able to bring himself in here and get onto a good top 10 finishing order there for the drivers. Doug currently sat in 7th place right now. Going to want to try to pick up a little bit more time, and with just as small as the gaps as they are, he doesn't need to pick up all that much more time, and he can do it.
You're right. The gaps are very small as we're watching the 5th place number 127 car of Michael Bolton. He is only just over a quarter second out of P1 right now, 0.328 on his current lap. He's coming down through the corkscrew, down through Rainy Curve. As we watch these cars, it is all downhill through here, so you really got to be careful with the throttle. And we'll see as this is one of my favorite turns right here. You see a ton of camber. It leads into the final turn, a heavy, heavy brake zone. Some of these cars all the way down to first gear. Get back on the throttle. Make sure you don't hit wheel spin. And name of the game here is just stay on the throttle, cross the finish line. And it looks like not quite as fast as his fastest. He will stay in 5th there.
Yeah, he'll stay in fifth. The one good news for the drivers here with about 3 minutes left to go in the session is I have noticed the track temperatures have ticked down by a degree, so they're currently at about 106 degrees Fahrenheit. So that could be a little bit of help there as Doug Boccignoni able to marginally improve his time, but just still needs a little bit more, about 46 thousandths of a second for him to be able to get his way up into closing in on Jad Duncan. Here is Mark Rondeau, though, currently sat in second place. He's going to be starting a flying lap right now. Again, only needs about 31 thousandths of a second to be able to get his way back up forward. He's going to be hoping for a good run. Looks like a good line there coming up out of the sort of infield section. Let's see how he handles turn 6 here. A little bit off the apex, but still able to keep things together.
Yeah, it still looks like a great lap, and this car is sitting second place right now, so his only improvement can go up to the top. It almost looks like he might have backed off a little bit on this lap here. Might have not gotten the apex right through turn 6 there. Might have let off a little and maybe setting up for this next one here. It's so hard, and you've really got to hit all your marks as we see these gaps are just so close between everyone.
Well, it's a relatively small circuit for a lot of what we've seen these drivers run over the course of the season, so a lot of time to be able to try to make their way up forward. But there comes Rondeau across the line. That lap not going to count for him, Joey. I think you called that right, that it looked like he abandoned that lap. He'll get one more, maybe two more bites at the apple here with about a minute and a half left to go. Looks like pretty much all drivers out on track. That purple car, obviously the very distinctive purple livery of Michael Johnson, he's going to be headed back out on track as well, trying to get one more lap up, see if he can make up about the 10th of a gap between himself and Rondeau.
Yeah, it is just the smallest of errors, and I really like what I saw out of Rondeau right there. In qualifying, it's all about putting your best lap together, and if you know that you made a mistake, it's best off to abandon it, take a deep breath, reset yourself, and then go back after it. And as we see, Michael Johnson right here is actually using the advantage. He was using the advantage of Rondeau in front of him to kind of tow him around the track, but looks like Rondeau had a problem coming out of turn 6 there.
Yeah, it looks like he made that same mistake, though, that we've seen many drivers make. Keeping an eye here on Michael Johnson, as it looks like I'm not seeing a whole lot of improvements here for him, as he is going to just try to be able to get what he can, hopefully get one more lap around here, and it looks like he'll be able to do just that, as Michael's going to come out of that last corner, and indeed this was an out lap for him, so he is going to be working his way forward. Let's see how he's able to navigate this Andretti hairpin. It's a deceptively difficult corner here. It's a double apex left-hander, but you've really got to carry good speed in, and you think you want to diamond off the corner, but there obviously Michael taking a late apex, trying to carry as much momentum through it as possible.
I think there's about 20 different ways you can approach the Andretti hairpin down there in turn 2, and it really all depends on the grip levels and where you're able to hit the brakes, but it sets the lap time for the whole rest of the lap here as Michael Johnson is just barely hanging on out of turn 4, dipping wheels off into the grass or the gravel out there. Hop on over to the 6th place car of Michael Bolton. Looks like he's on a flyer right now, coming down into the final turn. Going to go heavy on the brakes all the way down to first gear here and see if he can improve his lap time. Yeah,
he's sitting on about a 129.08 right now. And bad news for fans of Michael Johnson. Looks like he's had an error coming up through turn 6, but we keep our eyes on Michael Bolton. 0.09 of a second off there. Looks like that's not going to be able to get it there for him. And that is the last of the drivers out on track here for qualifying. So I think that's actually going to wrap us up here. A relatively small field as it runs, but there as the qualifying clock officially ticks over, let's go ahead and run you through the starting order for today's race. Lining up in pole position, it will be Jeffrey Shulam, followed by Mark Rondeau. Michael Johnson will be up in P3 with Jacob Abrams to his outside. Then behind them, it'll be Corey Lotvola and Michael Bolton. Jad Duncan lines up 7th, followed by Doug Boccignoni with BJ Fulton and John Momeyer in 10th, and Dan Fendick rounding out your 11-car grid in 11th place. And we will have a pace lap around here, although, dare I say, normally we talk about drivers using that pace lap to warm up their tires, get everything up to temperature, make sure it's feeling good. I don't think they're going to need to do a whole lot of tire warming here on this one, Joey.
I don't think they are either. You know, we were looking at track temps of over 100 degrees earlier. I'm looking at it right now. It's still over 100 degrees currently. I think the name of the game is going to be just conserve your stuff, conserve fuel, drive it like a minivan until you get to the green flag, then let's see what you got.
Drive it like a minivan. I'm going to have to steal that one from you. I quite like that.
Yeah, it's been told to me several times, as we roll out on pace laps, and usually in real world we have a handful of pace laps, so you got to put it in that tall gear and drive it like a minivan.
Well, they're not going to have a whole long ways to drive it like a minivan. They're going to be gritting up just out of Rainy Curve, going down into turn 10. So it'll be a relatively quick pace lap here for these drivers. As there we jump on board with one of them as we get ourselves ready to go here. Dan Fendick there on the back of the field. Dan did not set a qualifying time. I think he definitely just kind of wants to be able to hold back and see if he can be able to see everything play out in front of him. Sometimes a good strategy, especially when coming down into turn 1. Things can get a little bit scrappy.
Not only turn 1, but it's known to have a big accordion effect going into the final turn here on the pace lap. It's a very, very sharp turn, and things can get stacked up easily. So starting from the back, pretty good idea.
Pretty good idea indeed, as Jeffrey Shulam will take control of the field here as they bring their way through turn 11. Right now, all eyes towards Barney the Flagman as they go. And here goes the green. We are racing in California. It is a good start there from Mark Rondeau, who's already starting to pressure a little bit onto the back of Jeffrey Shulam. Looks like Michael Johnson. A little bit of contact there between Shulam and Rondeau as they went down into the corner. Johnson a little bit later on the brakes, or a little bit earlier on the brakes, just trying to back up. And there's more contact. Shulam around.
Yeah, looks like we got our leader around as Michael Johnson takes the lead as everybody heads into turn 3 for the first time. Still a little bit of side-by-side action for second place and fifth place in the back there, but that purple car of Michael Johnson says, guys, keep fighting back there. I'm loving what I'm seeing in my mirror. Let me stretch this out.
Yeah, and that red and black machine there is Corey Lotvilla taking advantage of others' misfortune. They were able to get by Mark Rondeau. Rondeau having a bad run up through turn 5, it looked like. He's going to find himself now getting swallowed up by Jacob Abrams as they work their way up the hill for the first time. He is losing position after position here. It is a terrible start for Rondeau, down 4 already. Here we come into the corkscrew for the first time. A little bit of side-by-side. You can do that, but you've got to be very, very careful about it. Chad Duncan and Rondeau going side by side. They're able to get themselves through nice and clean, though. We are clean here coming down out of Rainy Curve.
That 11 car of Rondeau has been in the thick of it. He was too wide coming into the corkscrew, through and out of the exit. Looks like he might be able to breathe just a little bit as these cars are getting single file. They're being very respectful out there. A little bit of shove in front to back, but everybody's still pointed the right way.
Everybody's still pointed the right way here as we watch right now. That is going to be Michael Bolton ahead of Jacob Abrams. Abrams taking one of those many, many lines that you talked about, going down into the Andretti hairpin, trying to take a little bit of a narrower angle there to see if he can maybe put some pressure to the back of Bolton. Right now, Bolton withstanding it pretty well, though, as they start to work their way out of the infield there through turn 4. This is where you've got to be very patient. You can't really try to get any of those moves going forward. You've just got to wait and see if that car in front of you makes a mistake.
The other thing we haven't even touched on really is this is a 90-minute race. These guys are out here scrapping so hard in these first couple laps. You got to take a breath. You got to get into the rhythm of things, find your line, and start to move forward now.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got a little bit of a battle up for the lead of the race there as Michael Johnson under some pressure from Corey Lotvilla going down into the corkscrew, not exactly taking your advice to calm back and take things a little bit nicer here. I think Johnson may have locked up the front tires ever so slightly going down into the corkscrew there, and that allowed for Lotvilla to be able to close on the back of him as it looks like about 0.5 of a second now as they start to stretch their way up forward.
I know that passing will be pretty tough here today, but I think even more important is going to be staying on the racetrack and limiting your own mistakes. I think if you can keep to your line, as we see, it is so hard to get up next to somebody, so just race your own race out there. Looks like Jeffrey Shulam coming in with a fast lap right now as he's trying to make his way back up through the field. And just stay on the racetrack out there, and I think you're going to be in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It's really about just trying to count back here a little bit. You want to put yourself into that position with about 10, 15 minutes to go to be very, very aggressive, as that was Jacob Abrams getting it a little bit wrong through turn 5. That may set up a little bit of an opportunity here for Jad Duncan, but I think they're going to be a little bit far back to be able to do that. So while we've got a minute here, let's go back and let's take a look at that start if we can. As things got a little bit hard scrabble, it has to be said, up between your two leaders here. A little bit of contact coming down into the Andretti hairpin, and then again on the exit of the corner as well.
I think Rondo just got in a little deep in one, and he got caught off guard a little bit. And then, as we see, it was kind of an accordion effect as everyone exited the corner fighting over the same piece of ground. And unfortunately, the leader got the worst. And as we see Rondo just get a little shove, and then I'm not sure he was expecting him to come all the way back across the track, but I got to put that one on Rondo. You got to be a little bit more careful here on lap 1.
Yeah, and once again, it is lap 1 of a long race as we've got a little bit of side-by-side here. This is already Shulam starting to work his way up through the field. That is 2 positions down there, Fendick and Momeyer, that he is able to bend clear by. And this is exactly what you need to do if you are that 371. You need to start working your way forward, try to start just picking people off one by one.
We saw that he did put down the race's fastest lap right now as Shulam is working his way back through the field. Remember, this car was on pole. It was spun out there at the exit of turn 1, and so I'm curious to see how fast he's going to hunt his way down through the rest of this field.
Yeah, I am as well, and especially if we've got a little bit of a scrap going on here for the lead of the race. This is Michael Johnson and Corey Lotvala as they fight for it right now. Again, Lotvala just applying as much pressure as possible, and I think the driver who's going to be most excited to see this battle in the short term here is going to be Michael Bolton, running in 3rd place. He's only about 2 seconds back there in that yellow and black machine, and I think if Johnson and Lotvala really start coming to blows, that is going to bring Bolton right into the equation.
You're right. It kind of calmed down there in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and calm is a relative word when you're only separated by maybe a couple tenths of a second. But the heat of the battle right now is up front with Michael Johnson and Corey Latvala. He's not letting that purple car out of his sight at all, and I think he's just trying to fill his mirrors wherever he can, as he looks like he gets a little wide there on turn 4.
Yeah, just a little bit wide there. Now let's take a look on board with Corey as they work their way up the hill through turn 5. Looks like Michael was able to get a little bit of a better run there coming up the hill, but again, not a whole lot of overtaking opportunities. Now, you can be very, very aggressive. We saw some side-by-side going down into the corkscrew off of that first lap. Thinking about it there, not going for it, but certainly closing in. A little bit of that accordion effect coming into play, but it looks like Lotval is particularly quick and very, very confident on the brakes going into the corkscrew.
You took the words right out of my mouth. It looks like he's got a little bit more speed on the front half of the corner, while this purple Michael Johnson car is really focused on the power down on the back half of the corner, and he's able to scoot away down the straightaway, and just enough to keep him out of touch.
Well, is that going to be enough to be able to keep him out over the course of the run? Now, we haven't really talked about how tire wear is going to play into this race. Normally, even in a 90-minute race, we wouldn't be necessarily talking about tire wear for GT3s. You can normally double stint, but from one of the little birds that we had talking to us before the race, we were hearing some words about maybe needing some tire changes, partially because of the heat and because of the load that really goes through the cars on this circuit.
And in real life, Laguna Seca is a very, very, very high tire wear track. So it is translating into the sim perfectly right now. And what I'm seeing out of our second place, number 22, Corey Lotvala car is he's got a lot of understeer as he's following our leader. And I'm not sure if that's due to his setup or just maybe a little bit of aerodynamic push behind our leader.
Well, and as a driver, Joey, what can you do to really fight against that if you are getting that push? As there may be a little bit of a way as he pokes his nose to the inside there of Rainy Curve, because that is one of the big concerns here around Laguna Seca. There's a lot of medium to high speed corners, and that aero wash really does come into play.
There's a few things that you can do, but you have to make sure to use your brain out there and not let the red mist affect you. You got to follow the carrot, but also drive your own race. And if you're having a little bit of understeer problems, you can try to trail the brakes a little bit more into the corner, keep the weight on the front end. You can even go as far as moving the brake bias a little bit rearward, I believe, in these cars specifically to help turn the car in the front half of the corner, just using the mechanical parts of the car.
Well, there you go, fellow iRacers. Go ahead and note that down there. Some brilliant advice from Joey Atterbury, and one that I am certainly going to take the next time I get into the car, although I don't know when that is because I never race anymore. I'm too busy commentating. But we keep our eyes fixed here on this battle for the lead. About 10 minutes down in this 90-minute race right now. Latvala continuing to apply good pressure to the back of Michael Johnson. Let's take a look here as they come up over the hill into the corkscrew. Let's see if what we kind of noticed a little bit earlier plays through again. Yep, Latvala carries good speed into that corner. Johnson able to carry good speed out of it, and so that's going to spread things out there a little bit as they run.
I tell you what, if I'm the leader, Michael Johnson, I know that I'm getting good exits, and you just have to stay calm. I always say, take a deep breath, wiggle your toes out there, just do what you can to stay calm because you're beating him in the most important part, and that is the exit. But when you see a car diving up down the inside, coming down the corner, it's tough to keep that calm nerve out there.
Yeah, it is very, very difficult to do. And another driver who's having to do just that is Michael Bolton, who is having to keep up the pressure here from the back of Jacob Abrams. Abrams has done a fantastic job of keeping up this pressure, much like we saw Corey Latvala doing to the same. It's another battle here that just continues to play itself out, continues to be a little bit back and forth here. Doesn't quite look like Abrams has been able to really get the edge. Again, we've got another car that could get interested in this. Jad Duncan about 1.5 seconds behind. If this turns into a full-fledged battle, Duncan could be able to play and bring himself up into the battle.
It feeds really into one of the stories of the race that we talked about, that it is very tough to pass here at Laguna Seca. You really have to almost capitalize on somebody else's mistake in order to get up alongside somebody.
Yeah, you really and truly do, and it's a testament here to the drivers of the Porsche Owners Club that we really haven't seen much of that mistake starting to play itself out. By the way, just a quick refresh here. Jeffrey Shulam still in 9th place. We'll bring you some of that action when it plays out. Here is Mark Rondeau, though. Remember, Rondeau started off 2nd in this race. He has fallen all the way down to 7th. Doug Boccignoni ahead of him, and this is something that we see quite a few times. If you really start to get a little bit, dare I say, into your head, you make a couple of those mistakes here early on in the race, those mistakes lead to mistakes a little bit. It just starts to compound a little bit, and you kind of have to do a little bit of a mental reset to get yourself, as that's Johnson.
You're right. That's the leader, Michael Johnson, around in the Andretti hairpin. I wonder if that was on his own doing or what happened there. I know that we'll get a replay, but looks like as they come down here, down the front straightaway, looks like he's plenty clear of Corey going into the corner. He takes that nice wide line coming in, and he just loses it going in. The car steps out on him, and around it goes.
Well, and that's one of the things that's so difficult about driving these Porsche 911 GT3s is the fact that if they start to really brake like that, it is almost impossible to be able to get them back around because of the weight distribution on the car. Could that have all been set up just a little bit by that wide run coming down into the corner? I wonder if that unsettled the car just enough to give him that little bit of a bobble.
I've been watching him all race. He really likes to push the limit out there on drivers right on entry. You're right. It might have caught him off guard a little bit, but that girl has got a big back end on that Porsche, and when it starts to move on you, it keeps going.
Yeah, indeed it does. Rear engine, rear wheel drive, so a lot of weight over that rear axle and very, very hard to come back from a little bit. We continue to watch that battle between Rondeau right now and Boccignoni. Ooh, could we see a little bit of a move here? Rondeau's thinking about this way, thinking about that way. He's going to try to carry some more speed around the outside of the corner. That's not going to play out for him. We are hearing some reports that Doug's been a little bit scruffy, been off a little bit here and there, but looks like he's able to keep it together here for the moment, but that could be what's allowing for this battle to stay close.
We know that Rondo has been fast. He qualified up front there, just had a few mistakes there, but looks like he's settling into his own speed. And I think he's got a little bit more speed than Doug up front right now, but Doug is racing a great race, doing exactly what he needs to do and keeping it on his line.
Yeah, he's doing a fantastic job to be able to keep everything behind him, and he now does have a little bit of target up ahead of him in the form of Michael Johnson, who was able to recover from that turn 1 incident there back into 5th place right now. So that is where Michael is, trying to close in on the back of Chad Duncan. Here is that other battle, though, now for P2 overall. Michael Bolton leading from Jacob Abrams up ahead in the field. Abrams continuing to just apply that pressure, see what he can do. Call it about 2-3 car lengths in between them as they cross over the start-finish line. They're going to have to do it, and that's a little bit of a good strategy there for Abrams, I think, poking his nose to the inside, just trying to see if he can force a look in the rear-view mirror there from Bolton.
I'm curious to see if Abrams kind of applies more pressure now that they're fighting over second place, because they can see the leader right out there. They're just a turn ahead of them. So if Abrams really wants to take the fight up there and try to take the win tonight, I think right now is a good time to push and see what you can do.
Yeah, I think it is as well. This is the moment to try to see what you can do. The tires are still relatively fresh here as they run themselves around, and you've got that little bit to push. That's not going to help Abrams, though, running a little bit wide through turn 6. He's got plenty of time to gather it back up under him as they go, but not what you want to be doing there if you're trying to keep that pressure behind.
I'm really impressed with the consistency of the lap times these guys are doing right now. I'm watching Michael Bolton do a 122.6 out there was his last lap. I'll keep an eye on what he crosses the stripe with here, but that's only about a second or so, maybe a second and a half off of what these guys qualified. As you can see, the gap between them has consistently stayed only a quarter of a second for this fight for second, and Abrams is not letting him out of his sight. I think there's only been about 15 minutes into this race. He's showing plenty of speed. It's time to really start to hound for this second place.
Yeah, I think it is as well, and I've noticed there that's the second lap that Abrams has been very, very aggressive onto the binders going into turn 1. It looks like he's able to be much later on the brakes, much later getting on and getting that car slowed down. So I wonder if that's him maybe trying to feel out a little bit of what he can do, maybe feel out that aggression, see if he can maybe start to piece a move together there into turn 1.
They both went off track there, both Bolton and Abrams out of turn 5. That's a sketchy place to run out, but guys, you know what? They kept it both on the same track, and I think they're actually hunting down the leader right now. They both turned a very fast lap, and looks like Corey Lotvilla might have slipped up a little bit.
Yeah, indeed, you're right there, Joey. 0.5 of a second taken out of that lead on the last lap. That definitely looked like a little bit of an error, and it's kind of coming back and forth a little bit here as they run. The number 22 making a little bit of a mistake. Let's see just what was able to be taken out here on the last one. Is here, Baccignoni continues to hold off Mark Rondeau as we're going to take a look at a replay here. Side by side, Rondeau trying to be a little bit aggressive, maybe going down into the corkscrew. Let's see what played out here. It looks like he kept it together, tried to be able to get a little bit going, but all right, this is the little bit of an error that we saw, hearing that there was a big off here as they came up the hill. This is going to be going into turn 6. Look to the inside there, and contact, a little bit of a wiggle. I don't know how they kept that pointed the right way.
Woo! That was a really late move into a very fast part of the track, and I'm just happy they're both pointed on the same part of the racetrack right now, as it looks like Rondeau might have had another problem as he's slow coming out of turn 4. He's back behind. Is that Shulam now? He's fallen quite a ways.
Yeah, he certainly has. This looks like another off here as they go through the corner. Ooh, is that a wide run there at the exit of turn 3? I think it was, going down into 4. And just clipping it a little bit and sending that car spinning right around.
Laguna Seca is such a small track, you have to maximize every single piece of concrete that you can. And as we see, they push the limit maybe a little bit too hard. The tires get pretty dirty out there in the sand. He tries to turn in from the dirt again, and he just doesn't have that lateral grip, and around it goes.
Yes, indeed, around it goes, and that's going to be just enough to send him off, as now we're going to refocus on that battle. That is him all the way back down to the field, and he's actually going to find himself behind the former pole sitter there of Jeffrey Shulam, who has now been able to work his way up behind BJ Fulton, and so we're going to see a little bit of a rematch of that battle up at the front of the field here, I think.
Yeah, I think this is the closest battle right now between Shulam and Fulton, with Rondeau closing in behind. As they work their way through turn 4 here. This is a really fast corner. If you guys aren't familiar, Laguna Seca was actually reshaped a long time ago. This is all a new addition through here after the Andretti hairpin, but turn 5 is really banked through here. A nice third gear corner, as it looks like Shulam is trying to kind of close up the gap here and fight for this position.
Yeah, he certainly is trying to be able to close that down there. Shulam putting a good run as he goes, trying to close in on BJ Fulton. BJ, who is no stranger to this track. Remember, BJ was in there for a real-life race here at this circuit, and it had an incident, and that's what kept him out of the Porsche Owners Club virtual series here for quite a few times. So BJ coming back to the track here obviously knows it well, but this is where he had that incident earlier on this year. So kudos to BJ for coming back out, and that can be such a bit of a traumatic thing there for him, I'm sure, to sort of return back virtually to the scene of that. But he's doing a good job here of holding off Jeffrey Shulam and Mark Rondeau in turn. Shulam, I would have thought he'd been able to close up a lot more and make this a really, really close battle, but they'll go.
I wonder if he's having maybe a little bit of residual damage from earlier in the race. Maybe get that fixed on the pit stop, but great to hear that BJ Fulton out here, back healthy after a wreck. And if there's one good thing to do, it's get back up on the horse, especially virtually. Learn from your mistakes, get better, and keep going forward. That's what I always like to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so BJ doing a good job here of keeping that pressure behind him at this point. You can see there out the rear view camera of Shulam and Rondeau starting to close in. It's got to be said here at this point that, as our leaders had a little bit of an off, and that's going to set up a battle here, potentially up for the lead of the race. Latvala having an off, a bit of a strange one there coming down through turn 10. I think he just may have carried a little bit too much speed. Now let's take a look at the replay here. Comes down through the corkscrew, coming down through Rainy Curve with the ride on board the hood here as he comes down into the course. Does he clip a little bit? Yep, he catches that big sausage curve there, Joey.
I know him as big old bread box curves out there, and trust me, that will break an entire front right off of a car in real life. So what it did in the sim right there, how it bounced him all the way out off track there, is very realistic, and it has closed in the second and third place. We've got a battle for the lead now.
Yes, indeed, we do. That gap between first and third now only separated by about 1.5 seconds as they run, so not a whole lot of time here separating these drivers. And don't look now, there's Jad Duncan about 2.5 seconds behind as they run. So this could very quickly evolve into a four-car battle here if we're not careful.
One of the things that we got a little sneak peek about before the race, talking with Michael Johnson, is that he said if you slide the tires or have any big mistakes out there, they have a pretty negative response to them. And I wonder if Corey might have damaged his tires a little bit. And look what's happened. This is really a fight for the lead now 3 times.
Yeah, it certainly is. And that is going to be, I think, the story of the race here. As you mentioned earlier, it's a lot about incident mitigation here for a lot of these drivers, just trying to keep everything on the right road. And there's another little bit of a mistake from Corey Latvala as he came out of the Andretti hairpin running a little bit wide. And those just barely little mistakes like that, those start to stack up again on that mental game that you've got to play. As you start to run around here, you start to think about, that's the corner I made a mistake, that's a corner I made a mistake.
Yes, but you have to keep pushing. And I mentioned it earlier at Laguna Seca, you have to use up all of the racetrack. You'll see these guys and gals, everybody out there using everything on the entry. They'll go out on the curb, which is actually off of the racetrack. We'll see that we'll go all the way over onto the apex curb. Once again, off of the racetrack, left, right, back and forth. It's non-stop here around Laguna Seca.
Yeah, absolutely non-stop as they go. We're right on board right now with Jacob Abrams, and this train is really pulled in here at this point. It is now under a second between first and third as they run. Abrams trying to close in onto the back here of Bolton, who's trying to close in on the back of Corey Lotvala. They are certainly making this a little bit interesting. And as we talked about, when you get in between this close of a gap between those drivers, this is where that aero wash starts to come into play, and it's making it all the more impressive that they are able to keep everything as close as they are.
Not only aero wash, but the more these guys are racing on the racetrack, the dirtier offline it gets. So each one of these little mistakes, it can end up costing you more and more if you're not careful about staying on your own line and hitting your own marks out there. It's going to be really important just to race your own race. It can be tough to do with this Porsche 911 filling your mirrors out there, but it's so important to look forward, focus forward, and not make your own mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. You have got to just kind of block out that virtual rear view mirror as much as possible for these drivers. It's a very tricky thing to do, but it is what you have to do to be able to keep yourself forward. By the way, not missing anything farther back in the field. That battle between Fulton, Shulam, and Rondeau has really stagnated here at this point, each of them running about a second away from one another. So this is our closest battle on the circuit. Again, Jacob Abrams a little bit later onto the binders there, going down into turn 11. He it looks like he's got that car a little bit figured out. He is actually really able to keep everything together. Hearing that Michael Johnson, though, may have had a little bit of an off here, and it sounds like a pretty good save here from the driver of the number 9. Ooh, that is coming up through turn 6. Let's watch this as he comes up through turn 5 right now. Looks like that. Ooh, a little bit sketchy there. The rear end wanting to step out on him. Let's watch him as he goes through turn 6 now. Doesn't catch the curb, but just a big wiggle there. A great save, but a massive wiggle there right at mid-corner.
That's a little bit more than a little off, because that is one of the fastest corners on the racetrack. It looked like the car was just a little loose as it was unweighted. Michael might have had a little bit of counter steering in for that slide, and as soon as it hooked up on that apex 30, there's a big compression, and it shot off drivers right there as we really see those cars dig through that compression there at apex.
Yeah, and that really sends a big load on the cars as they go through there, and it certainly does affect the handling of the car. You know, you're not able to take every one of these corners here as you would, but as you would on a perfectly flat circuit. But we check back in on the battle for the lead right now. Here is Corey Lotvala continuing to lead. That gap is about 4 seconds up right now, or 0.4 of a second rather, up on Michael Bolton, continuing to lead. They're dropping a little bit of Jacob Abrams, at least they were, until they went back down into the braking there for turn 1, and that is going to be a good run there for them. I've got to say, little bit of a runoff there again from Lotvala, but now we've got a big question to be able to be brought up here. John Momeyer, he's looking like he is going to get lapped here, and that is another thing that these drivers are going to have to take into consideration.
It is a big curveball that these leaders are seeing right now in front of them with John Momeyer out here, and I think that John knows these leaders are coming up, and you know, hopefully he'll be respectful out there of this lead battle, but I know that it's going to make things even tighter as decision time is happening right now as they dive down through Rainy Curve. These cars carry a ton of speed down through here into a really fast banked turn into the final turn coming up. It looks like John's going to pull off driver's left and let all 3 cars by. That was a great move right there.
Good sportsmanship, but big aggression there from Michael Bolton, and we've got a side-by-side battle for the lead. A better run off of the corner was Michael Bolton. Corey Lotfula going to get a little bit left out in the dust there, and that is going to be a pass for the lead, the first one we've seen in quite a while. Bolton going to go defensive down to the inside there, but it looks like Lotfula tried to get a little bit of a crossover. That didn't play itself out, and here comes Jacob Abrams. Is he going to have anything to say about this? Looks like he can't at this moment, but Lotfula not letting anything go here from the back of Michael Bolton. The battle is on for P1.
Corey Lotfula lost the lead there. He just got checked up by the lap car, caught him off guard a little, and Michael Bolton capitalized. But look at this, the 22 is not letting go of this lead fight. I know that Jacob Abrams is sitting in third place, licking his lips right here, saying, yeah, go take it too wide. Let me get up in here. Oh no, as Abrams hits that curve, sends him off driver's right. Now he's got to get it back collected on track.
Yes, he does, and I think that's actually going to allow for Jad Duncan to at least be side-by-side, definitely going to be side-by-side, definitely going to be passed as they go down into the corkscrew there, so move Abrams down into P4. Heartbreak there, just taking too much of that big sausage curb on the inside, and you saw the impact that it caused on the car, really throwing it up into the air.
It is huge, and not only that, but it's a giant compression on the racetrack right there. It is not a good feeling if you hit that apex curb, and unfortunately Jacob Abrams saw the bad end of things, as it looks like our lead is still very close right now, less than 4/10 separating the number 127 and number 22, as Corey Lotfula really closes it up through the Andretti hairpin. He looks very confident on the brakes.
Yeah, he really does, able to drive in there with a lot of precision, knowing exactly where Bolton's car up ahead of him is going to be, and so that is a real testament there to his ability. But I've got to say, I've seen Corey kick up a fair amount of dust around this circuit, and that's got to be a little bit disconcerting if you are one of those drivers that you don't really want to see that as all that much. But Bolton here, he is certainly one to be fighting for all that he's worth here, as this would be his first win of the season were he to take it here today, and that is certainly something that you want to be up fighting for.
Definitely, and that's a big weight on your shoulders, your first win in the series, something you just got to put out of your mind right now, focus on your races. It looks like Abrams was allowed to get around Duncan there as he climbs back up into the third position, but this lead battle is not going anywhere on the racetrack.
No, it certainly is not. It is staying right involved right now, as that is going to be Corey Lotfula closing in behind, trying to see if he's going to be able to get anything going down into turn one, as he is definitely pushing with all of his might. Again, taking a little bit of a narrower apex there through turn one. He's trying to keep the fight here, as he's going to have a little bit of a look to the inside. That's not normally an area where you see an overtake done, but Lotfula's going to get it done.
I was going to say he was closer than ever coming into the Andretti hairpin. He picked his moment on the exit, drove straight up the side of Michael Bolton and took that lead back. Great move, Corey Lotfula.
Fantastic move. Let's take another look at this, and this was all really set up as they went down into the corner. He got a better run coming out of the Andretti hairpin, really and truly pushing that car, just saw the opportunity and went for it, diving down into the corner.
He really took advantage of it, because that's a great mechanical grip corner through turn 3 there, and he just really dove it down the inside. It looks like we're going to get another replay here of Jeffrey Shulam. Looks like he's going to be headed down towards turn 5 right here, trying to follow and gain a little bit of position here, as it looks like he might run a little bit wide, and then try to keep it on track here through turn 6. Looks like oh, there it is, a little bit driver's right, and around he goes off of turn 6, something we've seen quite a few times tonight.
Yeah, it's turn 6, really catching all of those drivers out. My goodness gracious, that is not how you're supposed to take that, and it is just absolutely catching every single driver out here tonight. I don't know if we've had, if we're going to get through the end of this race here before everybody has a problem there at turn 6, as it seems like it is biting absolutely everyone.
Yeah, I agree. You know, you gotta stay on your racing line out there. We talked about those keys to the race. Passing is going to be so tough out there. So frustration can really creep into your head as we jump back up to this lead battle. It looks like Latvala almost went wide there on the exit of turn 6, really sucking Michael Bolton back up through this brake zone into the corkscrew. Bolton is not letting go of this lead anytime soon.
Yeah, he is not at all. Bolton definitely wants to keep this fight as close and as personal as possible as they run. And Bolton trying to do everything that he can to not let this go away. But right now, this is the battle that we see. It has expanded here a little bit. Looks like Latvala was able to get a little bit of a better run there off of the final corner. And that is going to allow for him. And there, Corey Latvala setting the fastest lap of the race, letting that gap grow to about 0.7 of a second here at this point.
You called it. Fastest lap at a 121.2. That is just shy of off of what he qualified at, which is actually less than half a second what he qualified at. And he's got the afterburners on right now. And I think that's a good move. You know, retake the lead, take your confidence, and just keep moving forward. And let's see if we can put these other guys in the dust out there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what he needs to do here at this point. He needs to try to focus on it as much as possible to just get himself up ahead. We've got another nice little battle starting to play itself out. BJ Fulton right now and Mark Rondeau having a little bit of a scrap. They just passed John Momeyer here as they went down through the corner. And so now that has allowed for this battle to close in a little bit more as they continue to run. Remember, Rondeau trying to recover a little bit from that beginning of the race where he just kind of had it all go by the wayside. And there you see, does look like that, as Fulton makes a mistake going into the corkscrew, and that's going to allow him on by.
Yeah, there was a little bit of ebb and flow to that battle, but BJ Fulton looks like he outbraked himself going into the corkscrew. Rondeau says, thank you very much. I will take that position, and up into 7th he goes.
Yeah, that's a good play there for him. Let's watch on board. This was a little bit of a strange incident here for BJ. I'm not entirely sure what happened. If he maybe just caught things wrong, did that car get a little bit sideways? And, well, I guess he may have just seen the writing on the wall there of Rondeau coming up through and didn't want to fight it all that hard.
I think that he might have gone in a little bit deep, coupled with Rondeau being right there, might have spooked him a little bit, but they both made it out the other side, and there's still 55 minutes of racing. Plenty of time to get back up on the horse, take the battle back up to him, and I know that the pit window is going to be open here pretty soon, so we'll see if these guys pit early, pit late, or what the strategies are going to be out there.
Yeah, that's going to be the real question here, to be able to see what they are able to do. I'm not sure if the strategy here is going to be pit early, pit late. It may be about pits halfway through the session, because as we said, we did hear some drivers talking a little bit about how they wanted to maybe think about taking tires, the super abrasive nature of Laguna Seca, as well as just the high track temperatures. Although we should talk about this, that the track temperatures have fallen pretty significantly here. They're down to about 97 degrees Fahrenheit.
They are continuing to fall, and I think that might be reflective of what we're seeing out of these lap times out there as Corey Latvala continues really on his fast laps right now. His last one was a 121.3, right on top of his previous lap, so he has got the wick turned up right now, and if I was him, I would just keep laying down these qualifying laps. The car's going to continue to get lighter, it's going to continue to get faster, and if that's working for you, keep it up, and hey, it might allow you to stretch it to take a couple tires because they might be too dirty.
Yeah, they very well might be. We could have a little bit of dirt and adhesion being picked up on those tires on the outside of the track, with just as much as we've seen drivers run a little bit wide. But right now it does look like the gap has stabilized for the moment between Latvala and Bolton. It's about 1.2 seconds now as they run, and it looks like Latvala starting to pull away here. Not by a whole lot, it should be said, by about the maximum of about 0.3 of a second per lap, but sometimes that's all you need to do to just start to build that gap.
It's very reminiscent of qualifying. There were just the tiniest of margins separating all of these cars out there. And Corey Lotvilla continues his assault on the 121 time range. And Michael Bolton right there also in the 121s, but 0.9, only a tenth of a second slower. Looks like actually our fastest car on the racetrack is our third place runner, Jacob Abrams, in the 728, setting down a 121.2 right now. He's going to try to close up that gap, try to take his this battle back up to the front. I think that's where he kind of belongs right now.
Yeah, I think you're right about that as well, and he's been able to close down by a pretty healthy clip. The last 5 laps, he has been in the green. He has been able to close in on the back of Michael Bolton each and every lap. The biggest gain he made was on that last lap by about 7/10 of a second here. So Abrams in the 728 certainly coming on strong. There you can see that's the gap as it goes. He is closing in. Lap 23, a big gain there for him, almost 9/10 of a second. So he's starting to come along here. And as these leaders start to encounter some more lapped traffic out on track, they're going to have to deal with John Momeyer, Dan Fendick, a couple of these other drivers. If Abrams is able to catch them at the right time, that could help him get a few more positions up forward.
You mentioned it right now. Our leader is coming up to a few lapped cars. And he's going to have to work his way around while Michael Bolton is going to fill his mirrors and apply as much pressure as possible to take that lead battle back to him. I wonder, though, Corey Lotvilla's got a little bit of breathing room. Don't get too aggressive out there. We've seen how hard it can be to pass. Pick your move smartly and get around these lapped cars.
Yeah, and it's really all about picking that smart move. You don't want to be too aggressive as they go. It's going to be very difficult for them to do it, to be able to try to get everything together. It's sort of the dance that you have to do here for these drivers to be able to pick your lines, pick your way on by, and see what you are able to get. It's not an easy thing to do for any of these drivers. It is made a little bit easier by some of the sportsmanship that we do see in the series right now. A lot of these drivers recognizing the leaders are coming up behind them and getting out of the way.
I saw Momeyer and Fendick notice that the lead battle was in their mirrors. They pulled clear off of the racing line in a predictable fashion and let these leaders on through. That was great to see. And you're right, the sportsmanship is fantastic out there, and I think we see a lot of that in the real world with these guys transfer into the sim world. Most of these cars are still in one piece out there, and everybody is still running.
Yeah, everybody's still running, and remember that they do have those 2 faster pairs that they are able to take. They are able to make those 2 faster pairs over the course of the race if they were to get into some real problems. So that would certainly be something to keep in mind here for these drivers. They need to try to keep everything together. You don't want to have to use those faster pairs, but they're there if they need it. And I think especially for some of these drivers that have found themselves coming into a little bit of problems here, the pit stops may actually prove it. Oh, as we've got a big off there. That is Lotvilla going for a little bit of an excursion off around turn 6.
It's not the first time that he has dipped tires off of turn 6, but I think this is the first time he's dipped all 4 tires off of turn 6. We're going to really see him maximize his use of exit and then some as he just drives it off track, but thankfully keeps it pointed straight and back on track he goes.
Yeah, exactly. Very fortunate there, and didn't lose a whole bunch of time there. Only about 6/10 of a second back to Michael Bolton, and so that is going to be some good news there for Corey Lotvilla. We tick over the 41-minute mark here in this race, just about halfway through here from the 90 minutes of Laguna Seca for the Porsche Owners Club. It continues to be Corey Lotvilla leading the way right now. Bolton trying to close in. I thought that gap was going to come down a little bit more here for these drivers, but it's not nearly as much. Bad news, though, for fans of Jacob Abrams. Looks like lap traffic hurt him a little bit more.
That's what I was just about to pitch in and say. He was closing in on this lead battle, but he got held up by those 2 lapped cars a little bit more than our 2 leaders did, as his gap is now opened up to 6.2 seconds. Looks like he might be on the wick, though, and closing it back in.
Yeah, I think he's going to be back on attack mode here. He lost about 1.3 seconds there to Bolton on that last lap, unfortunately. But as you said, he's definitely back on the wick, even as they go. But here they come down through the corners, and here is Jacob Abrams coming down through the corkscrew right now. Let's see if he's able to close in. Was able to close in about 26 thousandths of a second there through Sector 3. And able to gain a big chunk there through Sector 4, about 0.3 of a second there for him. So that is a huge, huge gain that he is able to get in, and that race certainly still on.
Yeah, that is a big chunk just in one sector when we were seeing the times only a few tenths apart from each other. I think Abrams does have a very fast car right now, just needs to kind of put his head back on straight, realize that it's not even halfway through this race. There's plenty of racing left to go. He can get his way back up to the front. He's been up there all night earlier, so he just needs to work his way back up there, and with the pit stops coming up, just hit your marks, be smart about it, and the race can come back to you.
Yeah, the race can certainly come back to you. Again, we're closing in on that halfway point here. That is what they want to be seeing, and I've got to imagine that drivers will be continuing to look at that pit stop window as they close down. We'll take a look a little bit farther back in the field here. This is Mark Rondeau trying to close in on the back of Doug Boccioni right now. Remember, this gap is sort of yo-yoed up and down here through the field a little bit as it goes. The gap's about 1 second as it runs right now. Doug continuing to run a good lap.
And Doug is doing a fantastic job out there. And this battle reminds me almost a little bit of some short track racing. You're stuck with that same car in front of you every single lap. When is he going to make a mistake out there and I can get by? When is it going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. That is the big thing here. You're just waiting for that mistake. You're waiting for that moment, and Doug has just been driving a race here where he certainly hasn't been presenting that opportunity here to Mark Rondeau. The gap's still holding at about 1.1 seconds in between, and there's a little bit of a mistake from Rondeau running wide.
Don't look now, but the fastest car on the racetrack is back to the 728. Jacob Abrams, he has gone from a 6+ second gap, cut it all the way down to about 4.5 seconds right now, as it looks like Doug, Michael Johnson, and Rondeau are working through a little bit of lap traffic right now. A little bit of unpredictability as they go too wide through some of these turns, but everybody makes it through. Great job, great racing out there.
Yeah, good play. Oh, that's the leader. That's Corey Lotfula having a problem. It looks like through turn 6 would be my best estimation, and it bites yet again here, Joey.
You're right, that is turn 6. It looks like it bit our leader this time as he rounds out of turn 5 here. We'll see good exit out of turn 5. Bolton is pretty close. He might be looking in the mirror a little bit. Let's see if he snags this inside curb. Nope, he just drifts wide, has a big tank slapper and into the inside wall. Looks like he avoids it, keeps it back out on the racetrack, and hopefully not too much damage on that car.
Yeah, hopefully not too much damage. That's where that free repair is going to come into play. Another little bit of a wiggle there for Corey coming out of that final corner. That's Jad Duncan coming up behind him there in the number 83 as they run, and that is certainly not what he wants to be seeing. It's limiting those mistakes is what he wants to be doing here at this point, not having more and more of those mistakes. Is now he's going to have to worry about, well, playing the same game with a different yellow car coming up behind him, and that is Jad Duncan.
Definitely, he's got his mirrors filled with Jad Duncan out there right now. He's got to just calm his head, focus forward. He only fell back to 3rd place right now. He did lose a lot of track position. It looks like he's 12 seconds off of our leader right now. But really, it promoted Jacob Abrams back up to that 2nd place, our fastest car on the racetrack. We're going to see if he can hunt down our leader as Lotfula is off again in turn 6.
Oh my goodness gracious, Lotfula just going from bad to worse here, and I wonder, well, I wonder if there may be a little bit of damage to that car, maybe something on the under tray potentially that's throwing him off here, or if this is just a little bit of a mental game for Corey Lotfula, if he is just a little bit in mistake mode here, that he just kind of can't stop from making mistakes. Now that he's made one, it's just sort of opened up the floodgates.
You know, when one domino falls, it can just set the rest of them off. And it can just feel like an uphill battle out there, and you can do nothing to get back on track. And you're trying your best out there, just trying to focus, trying to stay clean, and just nothing is going your way. I've been there before. It can happen, but the most important thing out there is realize you got plenty of racing left. You're still in a great position out there. You can get your race back, just get your focus back going, and things can come back to you.
Exactly. Things can come back to you here, and that's certainly what Corey Lotvala is going to be hoping for here. Jad Duncan trying to close in behind him as much as possible. But Lotvala, well, we know he's got the outright pace to try to pull away. His best lap time is only about 0.3 of a second off of the best lap that we've seen over the course of the entire run. So he's got the pace to be able to do it. But now it is going to be a question of, I think, when these drivers come down into pit lane. We have officially crossed over the halfway point here in this race, and so now it is all a question of pits. And do you maybe use that pit stop as a little bit of a mental reset? Just take a little bit of a break in your mind, and can that help you along?
I think there's a few ways that you can approach that pit stop, and if I'm in maybe Jacob Abrams' place right now, I want to play a few mind games with the leader. And I know that in iRacing, if we run these tanks dry, the car continues to get faster and faster and faster. And that might be a performance advantage on the track. But what if I dip into the pits maybe 2 or 3 laps early? He can't see me. He doesn't know what my lap times are. I want to get into his head just a little bit extra. Maybe it'll let me crawl back up there sooner.
Maybe it will. Maybe that is the way to play here for some of these drivers. We will have to see. Do they choose to try to come into the pits now, or do they choose to try to maybe wait until the hour mark to come on in? We keep our eyes focused, though, on the battle for the final step onto the podium here. This is Corey Lotvala leading Jad Duncan. Lotvala has come up and down through the fields here. And by the way, where everything stands as of right now, Bolton and Abrams, your first and second place drivers, they have yet to take a win this season. Abrams' best actually has been a P3, so we could be looking at a bit of a monumental day here for the leaders right now.
A big day for both of those leaders out there. Best thing, though, don't let the moment get too big. We're following our closest battle on the racetrack right now. Looks like the 22 and 83 out there. Corey Lotvala, after that mistake, really hasn't been able to stretch it out over Jad Duncan at all. I'm curious, yeah, there might be a little bit of damage on the car, maybe on the under tray, or maybe it's those tires have just gone off a little bit too much and he doesn't have that pace anymore.
Yeah, or it could be a combination of all three, frankly, that he is running into. So it'll be interesting to see what he decides to do in terms of that pit stop to figure out if he wants to be able to do it. We are hearing reports, by the way, that Lotvala does have very minor splitter damage potentially. And yes, indeed, I actually just got a quick view of the front end of that car, and I can confirm that there is some minor splitter damage. So that may be a little bit of an impetus here for Corey to come on into the pits a little bit early.
And that's a great call. You know, he can get that fixed with that fast repair and take fuel at the same time, get his car fixed up, get a fast race car out there and be back out on track. I think that's a pretty good strategy call.
Yeah, I think it is as well. But right now, it looks like he is not going to take that. Jad Duncan continuing to apply pressure to the back of Corey Lotvala. And I think here, before pit stops officially fire off, we're going to take a quick break here on GSRC. But do not go anywhere. We will be back in just a few moments to bring you those pit stops, as well as the conclusion of the Porsche Owners Club 90-minute race from Laguna Seca. Welcome back to Laguna Seca for the 90-minute race for the Porsche Owners Club. We've had a couple of drivers have a few little incidents over the course of the break that we took. Let's go ahead and jump you back to the replays to show you exactly what we are talking about. First off, here you had coming down into the corner there, you can see the Fendi Racing driver. That is going to be Dan Fendick, just running it a little bit wide there on the exit of the Andretti hairpin, and that was enough to send him off, but he is able to get back and pointed the right direction. He will stay in P10. We've also had a little bit of an issue here for the number 11 machine of Mark Rondeau. He just got wide coming down through Rainy Curve, and that allowed for BJ Fulton to be able to pass on by him. And then there you see that little bit of back and forth, and that preceded then him coming down into pit lane. So that does make Mark Rondeau our first driver to take the challenge of coming down into the pits.
You're right. He is the first driver to fill that tank back up. He will be set to go for the end of the race. And yeah, we'll see how that strategy plays out as the rest of these cars still have to make that pit stop cycle, see where he comes out. But right now, what I'm really curious about on the racetrack is, looks like Jacob Abrams, before we left for our break, was about maybe 3.5 seconds back of our leader, Michael Bolton, and he's closed that all the way down to about 1.1 seconds as they enter the final turn right now, coming through, completing lap number 42 right now.
Yeah, that's really impressive stuff there. He has constantly been in the green as they run, just continuing to run him down and close him down as they go, and he continues to try to see if he's able to work that in there. He was able to get about 1/10.5 through Sector 1 on that last lap. Let's see if he's able to do the same thing here again on this lap as they come across. He was able to do a little bit better. Call it 0.2 of a second that he was able to take out of Bolton's lead, so that gap is coming down, but we've got some more drivers coming into pit lane. Doug Boccignoni and BJ Fulton both taking their chance to come on into the pits.
These cars were running together on the racetrack for positions number 8 and 9. Looks like they both hit their marks pretty good. So these are going to be a relatively equal length pit stop depending on who used more fuel out there. But with both of them hitting their marks, I don't expect any position change out there.
Yeah, I don't either, unless we have a little bit of a change here for tires, although it does look like the 423 there of BJ Fulton going to be able to move his way back on out. Doug Boccignoni taking a little bit longer. I wonder if that was maybe overfueling the car a little bit. We're also hearing that there may have been an off there for Rondeau on this last lap. Let's take a look here at the number 11. Looks like there maybe just a little bit of over rotation coming through the corner, and that was enough to send him spinning around, and that was enough. But we also have your leader, Michael Bolton, coming into pit lane.
Looks like he's going to stop right there on his marks as he locks them up. They'll hop over, fill this thing up with fuel, and yeah, it's really important not to fill it all the way back up with fuel. You only want to take the very, very minimum amount. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there on pit road, and the car's going to be heavier than what you need it to be out there for that extra pace of having a lighter car.
Exactly, as Michael W. Johnson also brings the car into pit lane. That is going to bring plenty of drivers in here. Johnson, Bolton, and Schulem all into the pits, leaving Abrams, Latvala, and Duncan as your only drivers not to come down into pit lane here at this point. It does look like your presumptive leader, Michael Bolton, is in and out with service, but I say presumptive, that may not exactly be right with the speed that we've seen Jacob Abrams have. I wonder if he's able to put down some quick laps here and maybe be able to go for that overcut.
Yeah, we commonly see it in Formula One, if you guys watch the sport, is the overcut or undercut. And what Jacob Abrams is doing right now is the overcut. He knew that he was faster than Michael Bolton out on the racetrack. Michael Bolton came in, he says, all right, I'm going to stay out on the racetrack. I'm just going to beat you by doing my own race, by laying down faster lap times without you in my way, and I'm going to overtake you that way. But one thing I noticed, Michael Bolton's car was up on the jacks during his pit stall service. I think he took some tires.
I think he did as well. And remember, we had heard some drivers maybe thinking about tires earlier on in the session, so that is a little bit interesting. Latvala also bringing that car into pit lane here at this point, so that is going to be the majority of the field here, save Jad Duncan and Jacob Abrams. Those are the only two that have not come down into the pits here at this point. But we wait as we continue to just circulate around here, watching the number 83 of Jad Duncan. He is closing up behind, I believe that is Bolton up ahead of him, that is Shulam up ahead of him. No, excuse me, that's the 11. That's Mark Rondeau. Third time's the charm. There we go. I finally got it right there. Corey Latvala in and out of the pits. Latvala taking fuel only, and we expect there to be a spare car, and it looks like, yes, he did take the spare car. That front splitter looks to be repaired.
It is repaired, and we have our leader hitting pit lane right now. Jacob Abrams does a great job not getting too fast into pit road. It is such a tight turn onto pit road entry here. Hopefully, he's just going to be able to hit his marks right here. Once again, I'm curious to see if this car will take tires during the stop. Now, when you do take tires, it takes an extra time for these guys to hop over and change the tires, which translates into track position. That's why I was so curious about the Michael Bolton car up on the air jacks. It looks like everybody's going to cycle through, as Jacob Abrams will be the last car. I'm sorry, it looks like Jad Duncan is still out there on the racetrack who hasn't stopped.
Yeah, Jad's going to try to push this as long as possible, and normally as long as we tend to see no tires there for Jacob Abrams, that could be a little bit of a different strategy there for Jacob. We're going to have to see how that is in comparison, but I can tell you that Jacob will be able to get out ahead of Michael Bolton. The question are those tires going to be able to last?
He came out with a huge gap in front of Michael Bolton. As we see, Michael is just coming out of turn 2 out of the Andretti hairpin, actually makes a little mistake, which is not going to help him close in that gap at all. Jacob Abrams isn't even in sight. Look at that.
Yeah, it looks like as that gap starts to stabilize there, let's call it 6.5 seconds. That is absolutely monstrous for Jacob Abrams, and that is pretty much all down to pit stop strategy there, not taking tires. Now, as we do have our leader, Jad Duncan, coming on into pit lane as well, that will be the entirety of the field here. They will all be down into pit lane, as it does look like there we see Jad Duncan with the lovely GSRC livery on the car. Always love to see that from Jad. He's going to come to rest here in his pit stall, get full service on the car, and we'll let you know exactly if he's going to be taking tires or if he is going to be just fuel only. There is your presumptive leader, Jacob Abrams. He's going to come around to the final corner and come out of the line right now to get on past Jad Duncan, who is stationary in pit lane right now. Bolton looks like he has been able to close that gap down a little bit here on that last lap. Remember, we said it was about 6.5 seconds. It's down to about 5 seconds here as they work their way through the Andretti hairpin.
You're right, timing scoring is still kind of catching up with the different deltas and whatnot, but Michael Bolton is using those fresh tires that he got. It was, 5.5, almost 6 seconds when they came out of pit road. Now it's down under 5 seconds. I wonder if that fresh rubber is just going to allow him to be a little bit more aggressive, but first up, he's got to have to deal with this lapped car, the number 6 of John Momeyer out there. Got to get by him clean, as we see he does. Great job by John to just let him by there.
Yeah, that's the really good sportsmanship here that we expect out of the Porsche Owners Club, and that's going to be a good one for Michael Bolton. Now, meanwhile, Jacob Abrams, he will have some lap traffic to deal with at some point in time, but the closest car he has to deal with is Mark Rondeau, who is currently in 9th right now, and that is going to be about 25 seconds up the road from him, so hopefully not too much lap traffic that he is going to have to deal with here for the time being. But right now, let's keep an eye on those gaps. Yeah, it's about stabilized at about 5 seconds here between Abrams, between Bolton. That appears to be what it is. I want to see as they crossed over the line here if Bolton has been able to close in on this last lap. It looks like the difference is about 58 thousandths of a second to the favor of Jacob Abrams. So that is point here for the number 728.
Once again, going back to qualifying, these gaps are just so small between all of these competitors out there. They really have to claw tooth and nail for every inch on this racetrack. But what has piqued my curiosity right now is the number 22 of Corey Lotvilla. Remember, he had that little bit of damage before the pit stop. He came in, got that car fixed. He was about 13 or 14 seconds back from the lead at one point, and he's crawled all the way back. He's only about 9.5 seconds out. So I think we might have to keep an eye on that number 22 car, see if he can make his way back up into maybe battling up for the lead as he has another big moment out of turn 6. That's been a problem area for Corey.
Yeah, that really has, and commentators curse striking yet again. Let's go ahead and check out the replay here of exactly what happened to Corey. We're going to tech this on board right now. Comes through the corner. Looks like he just gets a little bit unsettled there, picks up a little bit of understeer, and that rear end of the car absolutely wanting to break away from him there. Very tough stuff. We also have some tough stuff for fans of Marc Rondeau, as he has been issued a black flag. That is a penalty, a drive-through penalty that he has just served.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, but he will be able to get back out on the racetrack, as it looks like Michael W. Johnson and Doug Baccione is a very close battle right now for the 6th place. So they come out onto the front straight right now. That purple car of Michael Johnson really tucked up in the draft, getting as close as he can, see if he takes this really wide entry that he likes, or if he decides to dive it down the inside. Looks like he's going to play passive around the outside, focus on the exit out of the Andretti hairpin.
Yeah, he's going to focus on the exit there, but some good defense run by Doug Baccione, who was really able to plant the car at the apex and the exit of the corner, and that really and truly was able to keep him there in position. And now as they run, it looks like here that Michael's going to fall back just a little bit as they run. To see, maybe he's just trying to sight the corners here a little bit, maybe trying to set himself up for a better run down the line.
Doug has been an immovable object here tonight, hasn't he? He's had a lot of pressure back behind him, but I guess all of these competitors have had a lot of pressure back behind him at one point in this race, and they've all done a great job not to crack out there. As you really got to just stay focused, not let the others affect your race, and you're going to be better off that way, because it's always the worst when you make a mistake and somebody goes by and you don't even get to battle them.
Yeah, exactly. You do want a little bit of that battle as they play themselves out, as it looks like John Momeyer's coming back down into pit lane. Not entirely sure what that is for. Marc Rondeau also looks like he is coming back down into pit lane, so we're going to have to try to be able to figure out exactly what that is. Rondeau looks like he's coming back out, though, so that may have been a penalty being served there. But here's Johnson again taking that wider line. Now, this is going to get a little bit interesting, because they do have Dan Fendick that they're coming up against here. Fendick, a lapped car in 9th place right now. That could upset the apple cart a little bit.
And definitely they're going to have to work their way around Fendick right now. We've seen great sportsmanship all night, as it looks like there's going to be an accident with Doug there out at turn 4. Looks like he just got caught off guard a little bit, but more importantly, looks like he got out on the dirt driver's left, which sent him into a big tank slapper there. He does have some damage, heavy damage on the driver's right side of that car.
Yeah, it really and truly does. Let's go back and take a look at the replay here, and it looks like tries to just sort of get it down here into turn 4, catches a little bit of that curbing, runs it wide, and that is going to be just enough to get there. That's frankly not nearly as deadly as it could have been. There's some pretty hefty damage to the right side of the car, but that front splitter looks relatively intact. You never want to be a driver going off there, Joey, but dare I say, he kind of got off lucky on that one.
He did get off lucky, but it goes to show you how even just one mistake can change the course of your race. And we had the lap car of Fendick out there, and Fendick did absolutely nothing wrong, but as you saw, it just affected Doug a little bit at apex, which pushed him wide, and a chain reaction after that, and unfortunately, Doug got the bad end of the stick there.
Yeah, I very much did there, and so that's not the way you want to see that break down, but that has really kind of separated a lot of our battles here as we continue to run and try to do what they are able to do and work their way through here. The gap up at the front of the field with Jacob Abrams, I can tell you that despite a little bit of a hint there that it may be coming down with Michael Bolton, it has come down to about 4.6 seconds here at this point, but that gap doesn't look like it's closing as much as we would necessarily hope it to be able to see a good battle start to play itself out.
It definitely looks like the gap has stabilized a little bit. These cars have been so close in lap time all night. The last lap out of our leader looks to be a 121.9, and out of our second place, 121.87. So that's less, what is that, 300ths of a second separating the lap times between our leaders right there. It's pretty impressive if you think about that in terms of a distance on the racetrack. Maybe a couple inches.
Yeah, exactly. It is just super, super close for these drivers here. And let's give credit where credit is due. I mean, they have been running here for this point for about an hour and 10 minutes, and they are still running fantastic lap after fantastic lap after fantastic lap. It is a real testament to what they are able to do out on this circuit.
Laguna Seca is such a tricky circuit too. We talked about the keys to the race, you know, only a few passing zones, but you got to keep the car on the racetrack. And when you're at a place like Laguna Seca, it is so easy to make a mistake. I think we've seen every single car out here make a problem or make a mistake on the exit of turn 6, and it's only mitigating that damage. Can you keep it pointed in the right direction, or is it going to let you affect the race and have a big off there?
Yeah, exactly. That's what you've got to kind of balance here for these drivers. Although I'm keeping an eye here, and it looks like that was a bad lap for Jacob Abrams, as it looked like there the Bolton was able to close down about 0.7 of a second here as they run. So Bolton starting to put in some good times there. And I think that was just all down to Bolton. That was actually his fastest lap of the race. So Bolton putting in some very, very good speed.
You're right. He's got the wick turned up, as I like to say, a 121.1 that last lap time. That was 3/4 of a second faster than his previous. He really cut into that lead that Jacob Abrams has right now. And what I'm seeing out of the windshield of Jacob Abrams is he's going to have to deal with some more lapped traffic, and maybe that'll help Michael Bolton close up the gap even more, as it looks like it might be a battle between Momeyer and Fendick of lapped cars.
I think you're right. No, it's actually not. There is, looks like John Momeyer is a couple of laps down, and Fendick is only 1 lap down here at this point. So that would, this is not actually a battle for position. Hopefully both of these drivers will be kind and courteous. Get out of the way there. Little bit of a dive for Abrams. That's going to send him off a little bit wide. No fault to Momeyer there. I think Abrams just wanted to bite off a little bit more than he could chew.
I'm seeing deja vu out here all over. It's like Doug out there in turn 4. Momeyer did absolutely nothing wrong, but Jacob Abrams just had a little bit of a mistake. Thankfully, it didn't cost him too much time. He's back on the racing line, but look at that. Michael Bolton now only 1.5 seconds back from our leader.
Oh, we've got a race on our hands here, Joey, as it is certainly coming to blows here. But now it does look like that Bolton is clear of all lap traffic. The gap about 1.5 seconds. Abrams is going to have to try to do this all over again as they run. He is going to have to try to get by Momeyer. He's going to have to get by Fendick. And they've only got about 16 minutes left to be able to close here if you are Michael Bolton.
Looks like Momeyer's going to let our leader by. Fendick is going to do the same, heading up into the corkscrew. A little bit more of a traffic jam for our second place car, Michael Bolton. He's going to get held up going into the corkscrew. Looks like Jacob Abrams is going to be able to stretch this gap for our lead a little bit, just because these 2-lap cars, they're not doing anything wrong, but they're just holding up our second place runner.
Yeah, they certainly are, really through no fault of their own. As you said, they just had in the wrong place at the wrong time, not really able to do anything there. You see Bolton recognizing what's ahead of him. He has got to try to get on by them. He certainly lost about 0.3 of a second there. Let's call it about 1.1 seconds overall there for him that he lost. That is not a good run. Not loving to see that there for him, but he's going to have to try to gain back in on now what is about 2.5 seconds, and he's only got about 15 minutes left to do it.
If I'm Jacob Abrams right now, I'm going, whoo, that was pretty close right there because I drove it off the racetrack making my own mistake, but that lap traffic ended up helping me out when I needed it most. Now I just got to calm back down, hit my marks, and drive away again.
Yeah, that's exactly what he has got to try to do here. He just needs to focus in and not pay attention to that relative box. On iRacing, you are able to bring up that relative to see just how close those cars are behind you, and it is not unheard of here for drivers to outright turn that off when they know they've got somebody bearing down their neck. I wouldn't be surprised if Jacob Abrams is doing just that. The gap has come down a little bit on this last lap. It's come down by about 0.5 of a second. Abrams able to eke away a little bit here through Sector 4, it looks like, but we'll have to see what the run is as they come to the line right now. About not a whole lot of time here remaining on the clock. Call it 14 minutes left to go. That's probably going to work itself to around 10 or 9 laps on the clock itself. On that last lap, by the way, Bolton able to close in 0.4 of a second.
It's funny you mentioned the relative box. Whenever I'm in the sim, yeah, you know, it can be a little bit of a nerve-wracking thing when you're in the battle and you're like, oh my gosh, look at him. He's drafting up on me on the straightaway. What can I do to help eliminate this? But I tell you what, I know a lot of these guys have been in these cars in real life around this place. They don't have a relative box, and they can only use these little itty-bitty mirrors. It's time to shut off everything else and just focus on the racetrack. It's got to be qualifying laps from here on out if you want to win this race.
Yeah, it very much is. That is what you have got to do. You have to just focus in on putting in the absolute best times that you can. Abrams still looking like he's losing a little bit of time here. The gap at about 1.5, 1.6 seconds as they run. Trying to be able to see what they can do here. Coming down through the final parts of the circuit, it looks like he's losing just microseconds to Michael Bolton. Bolton trying to close in as quickly as he can. Now, crucially here, the aero wash and the draft are not into play here quite yet. We expect to see that at about 1 second or so. Abrams able to gain a little bit on lap 55, able to gain back a little bit more on that last lap. Oh, this is going to be very, very close between these drivers, I think, by the end of the clock.
I've talked about it a few times already this race, just the frustration level. You're out there doing your best laps, you're hitting all your marks, you're doing everything perfect. Why isn't that car coming back to me right now? And that's when you push a little bit too far and bad things can happen. You just have to stay within your means, within your boundaries out there. Keep nailing down those qualifying laps. It almost looks like Michael Bolton is a little bit faster in the back half of the racetrack compared to our leader, Jacob Abrams, a little bit faster in the front half of the racetrack. As we see the gap come down only 1.2 seconds out of turn 6. I wonder if he's going to close it up more through the brakes here into the corkscrew. As I have the last few laps, that gap continues down to about 1.1 seconds right now.
Yes, it does. It's on that back half of the circuit where everything goes and everything starts to play right now, as this is really the battle that we have to keep our eyes on here. Diving down now into that final corner, turn 11. Could that be the area where we see the overtake get made on the last lap? We've seen it happen here before as they come across the line here on that last lap. What's the gap? It's 1.2 seconds. He was able to take another 0.3 of a second out of it.
Yes, it is continuing to come down. The battle is under 1 second right now between Jacob Abrams and Michael Bolton out here at Laguna Seca. These drivers have been out here. They've done over an hour in the car right now. The concentration is getting tough. I guarantee you most of them have sweat dripping down their forehead right now. Looks like we have another battle on the racetrack. This one for 7th place between Jeffrey Shulam and Doug Baccioni. Looks like Shulam is trying to get aggressive here, and Doug is still that immovable object.
Yeah, he certainly is. Doug has just continued to drive a great race here. Let's see, though, if Shulam's going to have a little bit of a thought going down into the first corner. Doug's just running his racing line. Looks like Shulam. Oh, and that's a mistake from Baccioni. We jinxed him.
That is the commentator's curse if I have ever seen it, and Shulam sneaks right up the inside of the Andretti hairpin, gains another place.
Right on board with Doug Baccioni here as we watch him working his way around, trying to see exactly what happened to really allow this incident to take place. He's down here into the corner. Oh, he just tried to break a little bit on the curbing and out to that out-hand side.
You nailed it. We saw Michael Johnson getting way out there driver's right earlier, and we see another car get driver's right and unfortunately got into the dirt, which affected his car. Maybe got into the ABS a little bit and out too deep into turn 2.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, and so that kills our battle there. But here's the battle up for the lead. Joey, it's down under a second.
Yeah, we're looking at 3/4 of a second separating our lead battle between Jacob Abrams and Michael Bolton as they head down into turn 5. Under 10 minutes left here at Laguna Seca. It is crunch time, and this is the closest the battle has been here in the last 15 minutes.
Yes, it certainly is. 0.8 of a second as they work their way up the hill here. Oh, that's a wide run for Jacob Abrams. He got off onto the dirt there a little bit, and that's no doubt going to slow his times down a little bit more as they now dive their way down into the corkscrew. And that gap is now down to under 0.4 of a second. The race is on.
I can tell you right now that Jacob Abrams is driving his mirrors. He's cutting apexes. He's drifting out wide. He needs to focus out the windshield instead of the mirrors as Michael Bolton is right up the back end of this Porsche. Almost gives him a little nudge there in the final turn. Only 8 minutes left here at Laguna Seca.
Only 8 minutes left to go. Is this the move for the run? Is this it? Here they come. Down to the outside goes Bolton. Is he going to be able to get that around to the inside of Jacob Abrams? No, Abrams is going to be able to hold it out onto the inside right now, trying to be able to see what they can do. They're going to be side by side almost. Bolton starting to put the pressure on.
This is a really big rhythm section of the racetrack. You got to make sure to hit your marks, not drift out too wide on exit. These cars are tucked up into the draft, coming up to the fast turn 5 here. Third gear through this banked corner, leading up to the tricky turn 6. This is going to be tough. They're looking to go too wide through 6, maybe.
Oh, careful, boys. You don't want to get too aggressive there coming up through turn 6. But here he comes. Are we going to see a pass going down into the corkscrew? No. Bolton thinks better of it. Backs off a little bit, but he's going to just try to get his nose there into the corner as they run. Trying to see what he can do here. That cost him a little bit of time. Cost him about 0.3 of a second as they work their way now down through Rainy Curve. Is that a little bit of a lesson here for Bolton on when and where to and not to make that attack?
That's a great point. He might just be testing a few different areas, see where he's better than our leader, Jacob Abrams, and maybe wait a little bit to make his move. But Michael Bolton is tucked up in that draft. We'll see if he pokes a nose down here into turn 2. Jacob Abrams is going to take that defensive line, really put his car right in the middle of the racetrack, say, no, if you want to go around me, you're going to have to go the hard way, and you might have to give me a shove.
Yeah, that may be the way that they use them. Oh, is that a mistake?
That's a mistake out of Bolton. He got too wide coming out of there and going into turn 3. 2 wheels on the dirt, loose. Lose a little bit of momentum, but I'm only seeing down 1.4 seconds to our leader.
I am too. Let's watch this again as he goes down into the Andretti hairpin. Just tries to be able to get that angle right. Contact there, and that's going to be enough to back him off a little bit. And then as they work their way up here into the corner, it just runs it a little bit too wide.
I've talked about it. You have to use every inch of the racetrack here at Laguna Seca, and Michael Bolton was maximizing the racetrack on entry. Overstepped that little bit too much, and don't worry, there's only 6 minutes left. Look at this, down to 1.0 seconds again. He's got that leader right there.
He's got him right there, and the question is he going to be able to take full advantage of him here as they cross over the line? Under 6 minutes left to go. Not a lot of time here if you are Michael Bolton to be able to try to close in. The gap is now 1 second flat as they come across the line, waiting to see if he is going to be able to close that back in. He lost a lot of time on that last lap to the tune of about 8.5 of a second, but I've got to give him credit. Through Sector 4, he was actually able to gain back about 4 tenths as they run. So here they go. Now it's still about a second right now. Is he going to be able to do anything?
This is the attitude that I want to see out of my driver, what I'm seeing out of Michael Bolton, the ferocity to get back up on the wheel and get back up and fight for this lead. Both of these guys are pushing it really hard out of turn 5. Neither of these cars have had a win yet this season, so they both want to stand on the top step of that podium. And something else, DJ, this Michael Bolton car does have a little bit of fresher tires. He might be using them to his advantage.
That's a great point. I hadn't remembered that. Remember, he did take those tires, and that's what gave Abrams this track position, but we speculated at the time, was it going to come back to bite Jacob Abrams here a little bit? Well, he's got about 7.5 tenths of a second and about 4.5 minutes to try to figure out if that was the right call. Abrams brings the car down in through the final corner there, bringing it across the start-finish line. Bolton's definitely going to be feeling what he can of the draft here as they come down over the start-finish line right now, working their way through the left-hander and on to the binders right now. It doesn't look like Bolton's going to be able to send a move, but they are pretty much line astern as they work their way through the corner.
I think Michael Bolton really has Jacob Abrams' number right now. He made that mistake, but he's crawled all the way back up, and he is literally underneath the wing of our race leader. And right now, if I'm Michael Bolton, he's been so strong in turn 2. He's been really able to cut the apex better than our leader. That's where I want to plan my move.
Yeah, that's exactly where I want to try to plan my move as well, but he's going to try to plan it coming up the hill, maybe into 6, trying to see if he can maybe force Jacob Abrams offline a little bit there, and that didn't work, but he's certainly putting the pressure to the back of Abrams, maybe seeing if he could have just elicited a mistake there coming through that turn 6 sequence that we've seen take out so many drivers here today.
That was not the first time that we've seen these cars battle too wide through turn 6, as Michael Bolton very wide through Rainy Curve, but able to hold on to it. This is the part of the racetrack that he's really been capitalizing on coming into the final turn. Heavy brake zone. Look at him all the way back up, tucked up underneath that rear wing. Gets the best run he's ever gotten out of the final turn. He's got to make the move now.
Yeah, he's got to go for it here. He's right up behind. He's looking to the inside, but Abrams is going to cover off that inside as here they go. Down to the outside goes Bolton, trying to see what he's going to be able to do as they run side by side. Bolton tries to send it, but it's not going to be enough.
That front straight is so tricky, and it really just boxed Michael Bolton out of the move that he wanted to make. Great positioning by our leader, Jacob Abrams, out there. This is one heck of a battle that we've got right now. Is looks like only 2.5 minutes left as these cars dive down into turn 5 for one of the last few times out here.
Yeah, indeed, this is not going to be a lot to run here for them. They have got to be trying to work as much as they can. Bolton trying to push as much as he can here. Is he going to have a little bit of a look as they come up the hill? Going down into the corkscrew. Off the road goes Michael Bolton. He tries to be able to hold it. They're going to be side by side down into the corkscrew, but it's going to be advantage Abrams.
That was a great run coming out of 6, but too wide racing still happening on the racetrack between our two leaders right now. Impressive sportsmanship. Not a single door bang right now. They're both still fighting for the lead, and here we are entering the final turn. Michael Bolton still right up on the back bumper of Jacob Abrams. He wants to get up in that draft and see if he can make another move, heading down the front straight into the Andretti hairpin for another time.
All right, 2 to go here at the line for these drivers. 2 bites at the apple for Michael Bolton. Let's see what he can do. Contact there between himself and Jacob Abrams. A little bit of how you doing coming through the Andretti hairpin. That is going to not exactly sit well on the drivers. It does look like, from what I can tell, though, Michael Bolton has been able to escape any damage on the front nose of that splitter, but he takes a big, big chunk of the curb there.
He's eating up curbs left and right. It wasn't just one bump, but 2 bumps. He's saying, hey, bud, you see me back here? I'm trying to get by. You leave me a little bit of the racetrack, but this is one heck of a battle as they dive through turn 6, another problem area tonight. Both of the leaders make it through clean this time, but once again, Michael Bolton with a great run coming up into the corkscrew. See if he takes advantage. Oh, a late move headed down as looks like they're going to go too wide through the corkscrew again and down into Rainy Curve. This is one great battle.
It's a fantastic battle as they go. As here they come. Coming to the white flag here is Michael Bolton. They are going to have to try to run this out to the very, very end. Bolton looking this way, looking that way, trying to find everything that he can. He has to back off a little bit there, coming through the final corner. That could cost him a chance going down to the Andretti hairpin. But here comes the white flag. Bolton looking like he's losing a lot of time as he may be trying to back this up.
Yeah, it looks like he didn't get the run out of the final turn that he wanted and is going to sacrifice his track position down into the hairpin, but look at this. He's been so good through the Andretti hairpin. He's right back up onto our leader, headed into turn 3. This battle is going nowhere. It's going to come down to the checkered flag between Michael Bolton and Jacob Abrams.
Yes, indeed it is, as they now work their way through the infield section, trying to fight their way up the hill right now. Bolton closing in behind of Jacob Abrams as they go. Here they come, coming up through turn 4 right now. Now headed towards turn 5. Really only 2 more overtaking opportunities on this track for Bolton. That's going to be the corkscrew and down into the final corner. Flicking their way through turn 6. It doesn't look like Bolton's going to be quite close enough here as they run their way down into the famous corkscrew. He looks like he's going to try to jump onto the binders there, get as close as he can, but he's not quite able to do it. They come down 0.3 of a second in between them as they work their way through Rainy Curve. Here comes Bolton. Does he have any final response? He's all over the track. He's dancing this way. He's dancing that way. Abrams just running the racing line to the best of his ability. Here they come down into the final corner, working their way through. Bolton looks to go for a little bit of a crossover there, but I don't think it's going to happen. Abrams on the loud pedal here, and he's going to be able to hold it to the line.
What a finish by both of these racers. Jacob Abrams taking home the win tonight at Porsche Owners Club Laguna Seca. I know that it's his first race win out here. He's had 3 podiums, all 3 third places before. Congratulations, Jacob Abrams.
Congratulations, Jacob Abrams, on taking the victory. Chad Duncan coming across there in 4th place. And there you see the signs of respect out of these 2 drivers. Absolutely incredible stuff there. They knew this was a great run. They love to be able to do it. That is why you see such spectacular racing here in the Porsche Owners Club week after week.
You nailed it. Spectacular racing, and the sportsmanship was throughout all of the race tonight, not only from the lapped cars, but this lead battle. I mean, it didn't stop for the last 15 minutes. These guys were tucked up, banging bumpers, banging doors, making lunges, and gosh, it was great to watch.
It was indeed fantastic to watch here, and we are better for watching it here on GSRC, but that is going to lead us to a quick break, but do not go anywhere. We will have those final race results as well as driver interviews coming up right after this. welcome back to Laguna Seca. You were just witness to one of the best battles in the Porsche Owners Club this season between Jacob Abrams and Michael Bolton. And up at the top of the charts, it was Jacob Abrams able to take victory away there by the merest of margins. Corey Lotfula rounds out your podium with then Jad Duncan and BJ Fulton rounding out the top 5. Then in P6, it was Michael Johnson followed by Jeffrey Shulam, Doug Boccignoni, Mark Rondeau, and Dan Fendick, with John Momeyer coming home in 11th place. And that is going to lead us directly into our interviews. And first and foremost, we have to bring in our victor, Jacob Abrams. And Jacob, talk me through that last 10 to 15 minutes.
And that was one of the most intense races I've had in a long time. My tires were dead, and I knew that Bolton's were fresh. So it was sort of just, use every trick in the book I could to defend.
Well, you played it out well, and talk to me a little bit about that strategy decision, opting not to take tires there. Did you think that was going to come back to bite you, or was that just clearly get in track position and that was going to pull you ahead?
I knew it's tough to pass on this track, so I knew the track position would be helpful, but my reasoning for not going for tires was I made a mistake in turn 6. I don't know, about 30 minutes into the race, and I went off into the gravel and lost probably 5-6 seconds. And I knew that the delta for changing tires was something like 8 seconds or something like that. So it was going to be dicey to try and get that time back. So I figured I would take a risk and go without tires, make up the time in the pits, and see if I could hold it out. And, it was tough, but it worked out okay.
Yeah, it clearly did, and we'll let you go here in a minute because I can hear you breathing a little bit heavy, and I don't blame you, man. That was a heck of a battle, but I've got to ask you, as we look ahead here, Phillip Island in a couple of weeks, can we expect a repeat from you, Jacob?
I don't know. That's a good question. I just don't know if I'm going to have time to practice for the next one because I'm pretty busy with work coming up this next 2 weeks, so we'll see. It'd be nice if I could, but I can't really promise anything right now. But yeah, I forgot to drink during this race because it was so intense. I barely had a moment to breathe in a whole 90 minutes.
Well, you certainly needed to be able to get that opportunity here. Jacob, go take it. But before you do, anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for putting this on, and the POC as well. Appreciate all the work you guys do. Thanks.
We are more than happy to. That was your victor here today, Jacob Abrams. Congratulations once again to him. And now, Joey, I believe you've caught up with our second place finisher, Michael Bolton.
Yeah, I've got the number 127 of Michael Bolton down here. That was some impressive racing that you put on tonight. What was the final call on that strategy to take those tires, or are you regretting it for the track position for that battle at the end there?
Oh, what's up, guys? Man, that was a brutal race. 90 minutes here feels like an eternity. But the strategy was something that Johnson and I were working on and trying to figure out if we needed tires or not. And in practice sessions, they were 45 minutes, and just the front right was getting killed. So just decided to take the fronts and was able to put pressure on Jacob. And I knew it was going to be tight, but just couldn't get the pass made.
Well, like I said, you guys put on one heck of a show. I think it was the tires that really allowed you to claw back to that leader of Jacob Abrams, really take the fight back to him. Was there anything else that you needed out of the setup to get around him, or what did you need to really make that pass?
Well, huge shout out to Michael Johnson for helping me with all the coaching he's been doing with me, and getting to dial in some setups with him has been a lot of fun. Our setup felt fantastic. I couldn't complain one bit about that. I think just fatigue started getting to me. I was making little mistakes. Jacob was making little mistakes, and I did have the pace and the tires. I mean, it felt, when I took the new tires, it felt great. I just couldn't make the pass stick.
Well, congratulations on your second place here at Laguna Seca tonight at the Porsche Owners Club, Michael. Is there anybody that you wanted to say hey to, say hi to, or maybe give a shout out to, say thank you?
Definitely a huge shout out to my fiance, Gabby, my mom and dad, my fiance's family, all my friends that are watching. So much support from all of them, and yeah, just super thankful for everybody.
Well, thank you for coming out and racing tonight. And DJ, looks like you've got our final podium finisher. That is the number 22, Corey Lotvala.
I have indeed. Corey, a great race there out for you. Another podium. I think this is 6 in a row or so. And on an endurance race like this, that's got to feel good walking away with it.
Yeah, it felt pretty good. Wish it was a P1, but it's okay. Third place, I'm happy with the amount of practice that went into this race. I'm pretty happy with that.
I'd be pretty happy with it as well. And it looked like you were suffering a little bit of damage there before you came into the pit stops. How noticeable was that on the car, and how much of a problem was it really bringing you?
I would like to blame the spin out on it, but the car felt pretty good. It didn't really feel like there was much damage done to it, just cosmetics really. But yeah, other than that, the car felt pretty good. Just started making stupid mistakes, running out wide. I'm surprised I didn't spin out earlier. I was off in the stand quite a few times.
Well, you made it work. I got to ask you, though, a little bit looking ahead. Phillip Island in a few weeks' time. That a good track, that a bad track for you?
Yeah, I like that track too. It flows really well. I think I did pretty good on it last season, and yeah, hopefully I can do that again.
Well, I wish you all the luck in the world there, Corey. Anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I would just like to thank Dave at Schmidt Racing. He's the best. All my friends and family, you guys for always doing a great job on these long races. I know it's it's kind of hard when we do these, but that and just the POC, and that's it. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you, Corey. That was your third place finisher, Corey Lotvala. And that, folks, is going to just about bring us to the end of tonight's broadcast. But before we do, we'd like to thank a few of our sponsors. First and foremost, Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. Also, Sunset Mortgage. Don't put your money in the bank, be the bank. Check them out today at sunsetcash.net. Also, Octavio Tequila. Celebrate now for a great tasting tequila. Go to OctavioTequila.com and purchase today. And finally, Rogers Financial. You retire once, we retire people every day. For all of your financial planning needs, contact Rogers Financial at rogersfinancial.info. Thanks also to the team today, Joey, Joe, and Dougie. Make sure also to check out our social media. Thanks again to all of the broadcasting software and hardware that is seen on our screen here today. And a special thanks goes to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. You can see some upcoming broadcasts here on your screen and also our social media links. So go ahead and check those out and make sure to hit that big red subscribe button down on the bottom so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Next time out, as we said, for the Porsche Owners Club is going to be Phillip Island, which is Monday, October 17th at 11 p.m. Eastern. Also check out those other broadcasts listed here on your screen. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.